What is going on, my fellow comic book readers, collectors, and enthusiasts alike? I'm your host, Alt, here at Control-Alt-Defeat Comics, and today it is Tuesday, which means it is time for another Top Tuesday. And today I'm continuing what I had started last week. Last week you got my top 10 retcons that worked, top 10 best retcons in comics, whatever you want to call it. So this week we are continuing that, and we are doing the top 10 worst retcons in comics, the top 10 retcons in comics that did not work. So, we are going to go ahead and get right on into this. Obviously, I should have done this in the previous video, but I guess I didn't issue a spoiler warning. A lot of this stuff is going to be older, but still, spoiler warning, if you don't want any spoilers on some of these different retcons throughout comic book history. If you go on to enjoy this video at any point, please drop a like or a comment. Any kind of feedback or conversation that you can leave this channel is always greatly appreciated. I appreciate everybody who takes the time to conversate with me on this channel. It always just makes my day. So thank you for watching, and let's get right on into the top 10. No honorable mentions this list. Just going to roll right on into it with our number 10. And at number 10, we have got the Three Jokers storyline from DC. Now, I will say, Marvel is more guilty of the bad retcons than DC is. Not that DC doesn't have plenty on this list, but not nearly as many as Marvel. And this is a retcon that it really, it's on the bottom of the list because it is not one that I personally take offense to as much as a lot of other people do. I understand people's complaints about this story being very, just kind of spitting in the face of the idea of what the Joker has always been, this sort of mystery. I enjoyed the story, but I understand why people did not. And it is a bit it is a big retcon telling us that there are actually 3 versions of the Joker roaming around and nobody knows who the original is. It also ends with this retcon of Batman revealing that he has known who the Joker was the whole time, basically, and chose to keep it a secret to not let the Joker find out about his family or whatever. Yeah, it wasn't a great story, and there's a reason that they don't really make reference to it anymore, because it is not very popular by a lot of people's viewpoints, so that is why it is at number 10. Moving on to number 9. And number 9 is probably going to be controversial, because a lot of you are probably going to put this way, way higher on the list. However, I don't have the same problem with it that a lot of people do, and that is going to be Nightcrawler's parenthood, being his 2 mothers. Now, I have no problem with Nightcrawler having 2 mothers. The only issue that I have with this retcon is it changing his original father being Azazel. And Azazel was a really interesting character throughout Marvel Comics. I mean, he is absolutely a demon-designed character. The red skin, the goatee, everything. He is a devil demon. And so to have Nightcrawler, who is this incredibly devout Catholic, be the literal spawn of a devil, essentially, the literal spawn of a demon, it was really significant for his character, and it really affected the way that people looked at his character. It really affected the way people looked at, like, his faith, and it recontextualized his faith. So then changing that to where it is now, oh no, Mystique, and this chick just got it on, and because Mystique can mutate herself into any gender, they were able to get pregnant, and Mystique is actually Nightcrawler's father, realistically. Again, I don't have necessarily a problem with that. Is it a little weird? Yeah, do I, like, whatever, you know what I mean? But, like, there's a lot weirder origin stories and birth stories in comics, so, like, not that much for me, but I just don't love how it strips Azazel from from his story, and I don't love how it just kind of like doesn't really. It takes away from what I feel is a really interesting journey of a character who, like, despite being a literal demon spawn, still ends up this devoutly faithful individual. I liked that, even as somebody who is not. So I thought taking that away from his character was really unfortunate. So that's why it is at number 9. Moving on to number 8. Number 8 for my least favorite retcon in comics is going to go to Kamala Khan being a mutant. Miss Marvel, or Kamala Khan, was revealed eventually to have been a mutant whose mutant powers were just unlocked by the Terrigen Mist. Rather than her being an Inhuman, this was done wholeheartedly because the Inhumans had failed. They were an attempt to basically make mutants but better, essentially, and Marvel wanted to sort of replace the mutants with the Inhumans, and it did not work. Nobody took to the Inhumans. They're pretty lame, and so, with the exception of Miss Marvel, and she's basically the only one that was successful. So they wanted to try and change her character up, and they've actually done this with a couple of characters, and I'll talk about that in a second, because even though it is not the same thing, the same exact moment in comics, I still want to talk about those as retcons as well. But Kamala, I feel, is the worst out of all of the characters who have just become a mutant suddenly, who are just like, oh yeah, your powers were actually always a mutation. And I just don't love it. It did not really work very well for her character, and they tried to shoehorn her into X-Men stories, and it never really worked, and she was much better when her abilities were just Inhuman abilities from the Terrigen Mist. It was a lot better, and I preferred that. So that is why this is at number 8. Moving on to number 7. Oh, actually, before we move on to number 7, a couple of other things, as I mentioned, they have done this multiple times with mutants, where they have taken a character who was not a mutant, who is just a differently powered superhero, usually with some kind of origin story for their powers, and they've retroactively made them into a mutant. They have taken the character and said, all right, you're a mutant now. Spider-Man is one of them. Franklin Richards is another one of them that, again, was very much not liked and then eventually re-retconned again. And, of course, like I just said, Kamala Khan here. So, but that is why that is at my number 8. Now we are moving on to number 7. And at number 7 on this list, we have got a moment which removes any and all consequences from a character. It basically just says, hey, no, that character was totally innocent and never did all those things. And it's really poorly done. I'm talking about Jean Grey never having been the Dark Phoenix from the Dark Phoenix atrocity, from the Dark Phoenix saga. So, for those of you who don't know, during the Dark Phoenix saga, Jean Grey turns into the Dark Phoenix and kills a lot of people. It's merciless and really bad, and eventually sacrifices herself. Eventually, though, because Marvel wanted to continue using Jean Grey, they found her too popular. Marvel decided they were going to bring her back, and they were going to bring her back by saying that Jean Grey that we watched do all those horrendous things was not the real Jean Grey. That was a copy, a clone created by the Phoenix Force, while the real Jean Grey was asleep in some kind of cocoon stasis thing underneath the ocean for years, and then eventually reawakens in a Fantastic Four comic, and then rejoins the X-Men after that. And then we learn of the existence of the Phoenix Force as this cosmic level thing. But that is great. That actually, the Phoenix Force itself and all of the stuff that comes from the Phoenix Force is really cool. But the fact that they did it all purely just so that they could bring Jean back without having to have her feel any kind of emotional weight or have readers feel any kind of way about her after the things that she did during the Dark Phoenix saga. So that it completely strips away the characters' growth, and it takes away a lot of years of comics, and also makes for some very unfortunate situations between Scott and Madeline Pryor, and it's just unpleasant and unfortunate, and I don't like it. So that is why it isn't number 7. Moving on to number 6. And number 6 on this list, we have got the Uncanny Avengers, Magneto's relationship to Pietro and Wanda Maximoff. So for years in Marvel Comics, it had been established that, and now this was technically a retcon as well, actually, so I will say, and this was one that made it in my top 10 best retcons, was Pietro and Maximoff turned out to be the children of Magneto, and therefore both mutants. Now, in Uncanny Avengers, they decided that they were going to undo this. And why did they choose to undo this? Was it because they really wanted to push their characters in a different, new, interesting direction and separate them from Magneto in a way that was going to actually feel like valid and good? No. It was because they, at the time, this was prior to Marvel Studios acquiring Fox in the movie company, like IRL acquisition, right? This was before that. And so mutants were an exclusively Fox property. Marvel Studios did this in the comics exclusively to separate Wanda and Pietro from the X-Men and from mutants, so that way that Fox could not lay claim on those characters while they used them in the MCU. That is the entire reason that they did it, was to completely separate them from mutant-related characters in order to prevent Fox from being able to claim ownership of said characters. That was it. And it was not good. And it ruins an incredibly well-done family dynamic. It takes away a lot of interesting things during, like, House of M, and it takes away a lot of stuff that really was good character development and just kind of throws it out the window in exchange for something that can be a better marketing decision. And that just stinks. So that is why that is going to be at number 6. Moving on to the top 5. And sitting at number 5 on my top 10 worst retcons in comic history, we have got the time Batman peed himself. So there is a storyline during Batman Year 1 that later on gets retconned for no apparent reason at all. Somebody decided later on to, during their run, add like a flashback to a moment from Batman Year 1 and reveal to us that Bruce had held his urine for 24 hours and in that moment peed himself. Yeah. You heard me. The Dark Knight peed himself. As you can imagine, people hated that. People hated that. It has never been referenced again, and it is one of the biggest meme jokes in comics. The panel gets brought up all the time when talking about it, particularly when people are trying to trash talk Batman. And it's just awful. It's such a bad portrayal of Batman. It's such a unnecessary retcon, and that's why this one's on the list. It's not necessarily because it's it changes huge amounts of things about the character, changes all kinds of history of the character or anything. Like, it ultimately is a very inconsequential change in the terms of comic books and in terms of the stories, but It is a change that ultimately serves no purpose, an unnecessary change to a good story that lessens that story for the sake of what I assume was meant to be laughs, but I've not met anyone who's found funny. So that is why I've got to put this at number 5. It's just bad. Moving on, though, to number 4. And number 4 on this list, we have got Steve Rogers, Captain America, has been a Hydra agent all along. This is even meant, like, memed in like the internet all over the place. It's even referenced in Avengers Endgame, the moment where Captain America leans into some agents and says, "Hail Hydra." This in comics is not Steve pretending to be a Hydra agent to, manipulate people to get his way like it is in Endgame. In the comics, this is a reveal. This is a reveal that Steve Rogers, Captain America, has secretly been a sleeper agent for Hydra the entire time. This rewrites decades of storytelling and recontextualizes one of the greatest American heroes of all time into a Nazi sympathizer who eventually helps the Nazi party, essentially. I mean, Hydra is the Nazis, take over America in Secret Empire. It is such a ruining of the character of Captain America that it is joked about, it is laughed about, it is poked fun at all the time by Captain America fans, comic book fans in general now, because it is just such a horrible point. And then eventually they had to retcon it to be that it was a Captain America who was altered by the Tesseract, I believe, or the Cosmic Cube. I think it was the Cosmic Cube, in order to make him into this Hydra agent or whatever. It just didn't work, and that's why it's got to be at number 4. Moving on to number 3. The top 3 on this list. And the last DC book, the last DC thing on this list. This is going to go to, and special shout out to all of the New 52, because there are so many terrible, terrible retcons inside of the New 52, but I had to narrow it down. And today at number 3, we have got the Amazons from the New 52 continuity. So, Diana, or Wonder Woman, in main continuity is crafted by the Amazons from clay and given life, and she's this, like, miraculous thing created from clay that's like a miracle, essentially, and a gift from the gods and stuff. In the New 52, she is just the child of Zeus. She's just another child of Zeus, and the Amazons are essentially like Viking warriors that you like go commit like atrocities on boats and just have their way with men, essentially. It is terrible. It is so bad. They completely ruin the Amazons' characters. They completely ruin Wonder Woman's character. They mess up the lore in so many ways that they basically had to just go back, and once we did DC Rebirth, they were just like, yeah, never mind, Diana's back to being a clay creation, and the Amazons are back to being good, benevolent people. I don't know why they decided that they wanted to make them imperialistic fighters. Part of me wonders if it was... I don't know. I honestly, I don't really have a good explanation for why they would have made that change, because it just seems like an unnecessary and silly change to make to me. Nobody wanted it, nobody asked for it, and all it did was make years and years worth of storytelling not only obsolete, but just give you a poor taste in your mouth for those characters moving forward until they were able to fix it. And that is why this is at number 3. Moving on to number 2. And number 2 on this list is going to go to a Spider-Man story. And that is going to go to Spider-Man One More Day. That is right. For those of you who don't know what Spider-Man One More Day is, let me give you a quick explanation. Spider-Man One More Day is a storyline that takes place, mind you, after decades of in real life buildup, as well as in comic book buildup, of Peter and MJ and their relationship, them dating, them getting engaged, and eventually getting married. This story takes place while Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson are married together. Aunt May gets sick, and she is dying. And so Peter makes a deal with Mephisto, who is essentially Marvel's version of Satan, even though there is actually a version of Satan called Satanish in Marvel, who is a little bit more Satan-like, but not the point. He makes a deal with Mephisto for more time for Aunt May to be cured and to get to live longer, in exchange for his marriage to Mary Jane Watson. And Peter agrees. And this completely erases their marriage. And years of comic development, years of this relationship developing between the two of them, gone in one story. And it's awful. And it's so it is completely out of, it makes no sense for Peter Parker. It is completely out of character for Peter Parker, because Peter Parker is a intelligent person, and he would recognize that making that decision would only extend her life by a short amount, because at the end of the day, she's still an older woman and is still eventually going to pass away of old age, compared to years and years of happiness with his wife. He would not have made that decision. He should not have made that decision. And the fact that that decision is still canon to this day ticks me off to no end. That is why it's got to go to number 2, because it is an unnecessary change that serves no positive, and all it does is undo years and years of relationship development so that they no longer had to feel tied to having Peter and MJ be a couple, which is just frustrating, especially from people who are fans of Peter and have watched him try to impress MJ for so many years, and we're finally happy to see that he finally got the girl, only for Marvel to take that away from him and shove him in a new reality where she is not with Peter and he is single, but Aunt May is alive. It is so bad. It's not good. It's so out of character, and it just undoes years and years of character development and relationship development, and it completely ruins a lot of Spider-Man mythos and characters. So that is why it has got to be at number 2. But now we are moving on to number 1. Number 1 on this list is going to be another Spider-Man story. Most of you know exactly what story it is just by the fact that it hasn't been on this list yet, and I've mentioned it's another Spider-Man story. But for those of you who don't, this is going to go to Spider-Man Sins Past. Oh, even saying that name sends a shiver down my spine. This story is awful. For those of you who have been fortunate enough to not have to read Sins Past and somehow not know any of the story of Sins Past, I honestly just suggest that you click off of this video right now before I ruin your poor innocent little mind with what happens in Sins Past. But for those of you who just cannot look away from this train wreck, here you go. Sins Past is a storyline where we discover that Gwen Stacy, that's right, teenager Gwen Stacy, who died, had a thing with Norman Osborn, and they had a child. It's sick. It's gross. It's a little too on the nose with current events, actually. Just rich people getting with teenagers. It is something that is terrible. It is horrifically done. It makes Gwen Stacy's character worse. It makes Norman Osborn's character horrendously worse. It does no positive for the story, for the characters. It really goes nowhere ultimately because writers just kind of forgot about it existing after the massive amount of backlash for it. They just basically said, "Yeah, never mind. That wasn't actually a thing. That didn't really happen." But I know. I had to see it. I have to know about it. And unfortunately, now you do too. It is just the worst story. It's not the worst story in Marvel. There are a few stories in Marvel that are worse, but it is definitely easily the worst retcon in comics. I mean, us learning that Norman, a fully grown adult with a child the age of Gwen Stacy, got Gwen Stacy pregnant. It is just sickening, honestly. And even talking about it makes me feel a little disgusted in my stomach from having to just think about how awful the storyline is. So that's why there was no way this didn't end up on my number one spot. And there you have it, folks. That is my top 10 worst retcons in comics. Top 10 retcons in comics that did not work. If you enjoyed this video at any point, please drop a like, leave a comment, or subscribe. I am currently at 34 subscribers. I'm on my road to 100. My goal is to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the year. So anybody who has subscribed to help push me further towards that goal, I want to sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, say thank you. I appreciate it. It really means the world to me that you watched my content and went, that was all right. I want to check out more. Seriously, thank you. For anybody else who did enjoy this video, check out my channel for more comic book content to come. I hope you have a fantastic day, a fantastic week, and I will see you all in my next video. Goodbye.